I'm Chris McDonough, a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room. Hey, aloha everybody. Welcome to the interview room. And we're grateful that you're here. I'm sure each and every one of you look fantastic at home. And hopefully you've got your feet up and got some popcorn out and your bingo card. Because as you can tell, I've got Steve back. I've got Dean back. Coop, that lucky dog, is out with some family commitments. And so, God bless him. And Mom bought me a new T-shirt. As you can tell, it looks a little big, but it's the thought that always counts, and I'm grateful for that. Shout out to all of our mods. We absolutely love you, Miss Sophie, Miss Sophia, Maui Girl, Mimi J2, Crystal G, Melissa Hart, Four Sons Mom. We can't do this without you. Women, we are so grateful that you're on our team, and we're also grateful to all of our subscribers and channel members. Our motto here at the interview room is just be here. If you're not a channel member, that's okay. The fact that you're here is what really is just awesome. We're grateful. As you can tell, I've got Dean from the Cold Case Foundation. He's the assistant executive director. How you doing, Gene?
I'm doing good. It's a privilege to always hang out with you.
You're awesome. And Steve Johnson, Mr. Truth to Lies. If you've not seen any of his stuff, boy, are you in for a treat tonight. Dean trained, and both Steve and Dean train law enforcement all over the United States and, quite frankly, all over the world. But Steve is a forensic statement analyst. And tonight we're going to hit some of the things that are floating around. I want to talk to you about, some of that as we get into the hour and a half here this evening. Steve, how you doing, bud?
Doing great. It's great to be here, Chris. I'm good to see you again, Dean.
Good to see you.
Hey, man, your guys in Arizona, I had a bingo card for 100 about 11 months ago when I was over with Mike on Profiling Evil. We did a video, and it was in August of last year, and I said $100 bingo card on Chandler, that they're going to line this up. And boy, did they line it up. Your guys out there did a great job. Thoughts?
I from the get-go, I thought that they were going to. I had a little bit of insight into the workings that were going on. They kept it pretty close to the chest. Good for them. But they, from what I was hearing back then, they were working every angle and every detail. They were working hand in hand with numerous investigative agencies here in the Valley of the Sun and in Idaho and the federal system. And I knew they were just taking their time and they were going to put it together, and eventually the charges were going to come down the pike. And so I was excited to see that happen. And in this particular case, I was super excited. This particular case this incident, the Charles Vallow shooting we're going to talk about tonight. I kind of did the same thing that you did. We did an analysis on this case with a group of really sharp investigators and analysts, and we found that Alex Cox's language revealed some some pretty interesting things, which we're going to cover tonight. And so I just knew it was a matter of time before this came down the pike. So good for them. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. And, those guys, they have been working from day one. And it was neat to see, the affidavit come out. And now we've got a dump of 2,500 emails that have come down the pipeline here. And here's a couple of things on that. So that came as a FOIA. It took about a year to get that information into the public arena. Wow, somebody had a good attorney over there, from the news station to argue. But here's some of the points that the most recent updates in those 2,500 pages to date. So most of it's redacted, as we know, okay? But there's a photo of JJ in his red pajamas. I actually have the picture. I'll put it up here in a little bit. But it's going to be the last known picture of him, the little boy. He was buried apparently in those red PJs. So it looks like the time frame here that his stepmom was playing with was real close to when that photo was taken. And maybe, as we say, right, Dean, in the business, that's probably a trophy photograph of him, right, Steve? I mean, you guys and Dean, you agree?
That could be.
Yeah, could be.
Yep. And so it's a sad picture. And quite frankly, I'm just beside myself when I looked at it. So I'll put it up towards the end. And Dean, I'll actually send it over to you. If you could put it on your screen, and then I'll add it in.
Okay.
Let's see here. In fact, here's a note here from M. Butler. Lori bringing JJ's iPad to entertain her on the flight to have an alibi during Timmy while he's buried in Chad's backyard. Yeah, we totally agree. And we're going to see some of that. And one of the reasons Steve wanted to come and talk about this, because like he said, he really is, he's in their backyard. You're in Arizona. You know those guys. You've trained them. And they've, some of them. And they've really done an outstanding job here. But I want to talk about not only these 2,500 emails, but I want to remind everybody that this night we're going to dedicate it to Charles Vallow, because he is an innocent victim in this craziness of these people. So the red PJs comes out, the photograph. There's also a photo from September 23rd, 2019, showing that ammunition was purchased at an Idaho gun store. Now, this makes sense of why the FBI had the metal detectors out on the side yard. Either A, that was for Tammy, or B, that was for one of the two children. And people are asking me, I turn up my volume. How's this? Is this a little bit better?
Yep.
Can hear you a lot better now. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. So anyway, so that ammo was purchased September 23rd in Idaho, which is really, really interesting, because obviously, these children are killed in that vicinity at that time. And so October 2nd, Lori bought, so we're going to play a little, what I'm going to call eye roll bingo. And this is the dark score for Lori. Okay. Eye roll is Lori backwards. So that's her new name, right? Like Ned.
I like it.
You like that? So and by the way, you'll see on my homicide shirt down here, it says sarcasm. You have to understand, warning, sarcasm inside right there. Okay.
Now I know why your wife bought it for you.
Yeah. So this is, so I roll right now. She's scoring at about an 82. Okay. from the last live I did the other night. So she's in it. She's in it about an 82. Okay? And Chad is, quite frankly, Chad's not leading the pack too well. He's a little bit lower than that, but we've got Alex in there, and Alex is a high 29 right now. So iRoll is leading the pack, and so hopefully now, if she's got this on her phone, I think that's worth another 10 at least. You know, if she's got these photos on her phone, that's 20. So she's at 102. Her dark score isn't getting any better by the day here, anyway, from my perspective. So let's see here. So also, do you know how much the ring cost that she bought? Does anybody know? Guys and gals, if you know, put the cost of the ring in our chat here tonight. And by the way, we have the greatest people. We really do. We have the greatest people. Okay? Yeah. Tea time for me. Yeah, $35. She bought a ring, $38 total with shipping. Okay.
Serious.
$38. I mean, this, talk about, not the elevator not going to the top floor. She is just processing this whole thing that, it's just about getting the next event, and that's going to be that marriage. And so what does she do? She spends $35 plus tax for a total of $38.15 with Charles's Amazon account. Right, Sophie. Exactly. With Charles' Amazon account. So she uses the guy that she lines up to take out his Amazon account for a little bit longer post-mortem. Okay. Now, this is the reason I'm pointing these behaviors out, because, Dean, why is it important when a suspect who potentially, and I've called her a serial right now, okay, because she's got these, everywhere she goes, people are falling.
Right.
Okay. And so what she's doing is collecting. Okay.
Yep.
And, for her, it's about collecting not only the money, that's one aspect of what people are seeing here, but even on the other side of this, she is collecting tokens in relationship to her crimes. Okay. So I'm gonna go on a bingo card here for 10 to 20 tonight, that when they really start getting this thing to trial, okay, a lot of these other situations, there's going to be a lot of crossover into JJ Ryan, into Tammy, into the kids. I think they're going to find a treasure trove of information, and that's why the majority of these emails, these 2,500 emails, are redacted that were sent to the PD. Thoughts, guys? Any thoughts on that?
Anytime that you have a big case like this, and it's been worked for this long. I mean, Charles was shot. Think about this, guys. Charles was shot 2 years ago tomorrow. Okay. Yep. This is the anniversary. This has been going on a long time. And then you had the weird incidents with the kids and disappearing, and it started the whole ball rolling. They've been working this a long time. There is so much information. I would fully expect that at least half those 2,500 documents is redacted. I would be amazed if it's not at least half that's redacted. And once it comes to trial, oh my goodness, the information that's going to come out is just going to be overwhelming, I think.
I totally agree. Dean, what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, and I also think that it's one of the reasons why it's so important for the agencies to be, coordinating and communicating, cooperating with each other, because I think, as you described it, that overlap and, as they work together in the various jurisdictions, I think it's gonna be very powerful. I think the only thing that will derail it will be if they begin to silo up and begin to create barriers. But I'm not seeing that. It sounds like everything so far has been that. I was thinking earlier too when you were talking. I think the general public gets always frustrated because of how long it takes. But I think it's so important to remember that they're not just following a theory of what they think, but there's a process here of disproving or removing other, possibilities. And so that takes time. You can't just do that in a moment. And, I think a lot of times they want to be in a position that when they're ready to move forward, that somebody can't come in and say, well, did you ever think of this? They're able to say, yeah, we did. And here's where that stops. And this is where, this is a solid lead and we've stayed with it. And so, but I think if they're all, communicating, I mean, Greg talks about this a lot to us all the time, that, those are the three elements that if we lose those in law enforcement, then, the wheels start coming off. So.
Yeah, good point. Those are both valid points, guys. And so we've also now will learn that Alex, right after he commits this homicide, in conjunction with Lori, he takes off to South America.
Yeah.
Now, what thoughts on that? What do you think about that, right? Talk about consciousness of guilt.
Post behavior.
Yeah,
I think, you look at one of the things we're always looking at is behavior leading up to, obviously, the commission of the crime, but what's the post behavior of potential offenders? And, he says in his interview that he's got a good job. He's a truck driver. He's got all those things happening. So all of a sudden to take off and head to South America is definitely a flag.
Yeah, if it's the profile of any number of cases that I can think of where a homicide has been committed or some serious crime, this is very typical of that post-incident behavior. So it's one of those things that we chalk up to very likely relates to guilty knowledge or guilty understanding, guilty involvement of some type. Yeah, it fits.
Yeah, so, of course, Charles is murdered on July 11th, 2019. And then Alex, a couple of days later, jumps on a plane from Phoenix to Colombia right after the shooting. So, boy, that's a red flag in of itself. And the great information here is the authorities knew about it. And, of course, they were tracking it. We all know how that works from our side. So, this is a good thing that they were able to pin that down. And I can't wait to see, his photographs that will come up. I wonder if there's going to be correspondence between her, Lori, or Iroll and Alex, text messages or something sitting in there in that treasure trove that's been blacked out on the emails that are released so far, which also then points to Zaluma, the wife of Alex, right? She's from South America. That's going to be interesting how that points out very much how that's going to roll into. And then, of course, everything right after that, Alex dies shortly thereafter. The Emmys called it right now, natural, but we'll see how that's going to unfold, whether or not there's some other chemicals on board.
Yeah.
So, Steve, with your expertise, we wanted to talk about some of the flags early on in this with Charles. And so I had to upload, some video from the body camera that you asked me to. And so we've got that tonight. And Alex flew to Colombia, not Chile. That's correct. He flew to Colombia from Phoenix to Colombia. And I'm reading a couple of chat messages coming in. Okay. And so let's see here. I'm gonna show this tonight, and as we're gonna do the standard. Steve Johnson, you drive, stop, talk. I'll stop the video, and so I wanted to show the body camera video and then kind of chat about it. And there's one guy in here that I keep hearing about, and I don't know if this is the guy because I've never met the guy. There was a friend of somebody, of Lori and or Chad or somebody that worked at the PD. Do you know anything about that?
No, that's the first I've heard of that.
Okay, I don't know if this is. I don't know if it's rumor. I don't know, what the deal is. Okay, but I've just heard that there was somebody down there, was a SWAT member or something to that effect. And then I see in this video some guy with a SWAT shirt on, and he pulls. Okay, somebody just put the name Jason Maua. Okay, and then I see this guy show up with a SWAT shirt on, and he pulls Lori aside and walks her away under the tape while CID is arriving. Now, I don't know if that's anything. It probably isn't. But if it's the same guy, I got a problem with that, personally. I'm just saying right up front when we see this, I'm not saying it is anything at this point, but if it is, we'll see. We'll see if it's the same guy. I'm hoping it's not. Okay, so we've got the picture of JJ. And guys and gals, I want to be respectful here, obviously, for the sweet child. But this is the photograph that is in the emails that came out. And this is our little guy sitting in his red pajamas. Okay. Now, this is one of these things that say, wow. If this is the last photo of this little guy, it'd be interesting to pin down where this photo was taken. And if anybody is in Idaho and that countertop looks familiar to your apartment with those types of light switches in the background, please put it in the chat over to the right here. Okay? All right. So that said, the next piece then is let's get into Charles. And I'm going to put the video up here, Steve. And as we go along here, I want you, because I know you've also have a narrative on this, but I want your insight into what's going on from your perspective, and Dean, anything that comes up into you as well. And while we got a couple of minutes, we want to honor Charles and his life and his family. This man is an innocent victim of homicide. And he, this is just horrible that this thing went down. And so we're going to be very respectful of him. We've got the best mods in the business, in my opinion. Miss Sophia, Maui Girl, Mimi J2, Crystal G, Melissa Hart, Four Sons Mom. You guys are amazing. We really appreciate you. So, and then of course, all of our members or all of our friends who are visiting with us tonight, be respectful, and then, we'll get through this correctly. So, Steve, I'm going to go ahead and start playing it, and then we'll go from there. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go.
Bird up the street.
Who else is in the house? Hey, just have a seat right there. Let's get FD in here. Have a seat. You have some ID on you, sir?
Yeah.
What happened today? How did it get to this?
I don't know, he was enraged.
What's going on? What happened?
Huh? He was talking with my sister earlier.
No, what happened?
Let's hold up.
Like,
So right away, and I don't know if you all can hear that very well, but the officer said, "What happened today? How did it get to this?" And I thought that was it was a fantastic question. What happened today? And the officer posed actually a psychological question. How did it escalate to this? What brought? It's an open opportunity for Alex here to latch on to that. Something happened to that escalated it to this point, and so the officers, I think, real calm and asked a real pertinent question in the correct way. It's open ended, and
It's a clean question.
it's a clean question. There you go.
Yeah.
And Alex's response, "I don't know." He was enraged. And, this "I don't know" is unexpected. There's a story. "I don't know" would be maybe a response that we would get from someone. Let's say we were looking at the scene of the Las Vegas shooting, where the concert shooting, where guys shooting from the hotel windows, and people are dying, and you're interviewing witnesses that were there when people were being shot next to them, and they say, "Well, what happened? How did it get to this?" And they would rightfully say, "I don't know. Shots were being fired and people were dying. I don't know." That would be expected. But in this case, he was there, and notice that he's not amped up at all. He's not shaking. There's no sign of him of nervousness, he is cool as a cucumber, and that is so unexpected. And Dean and Chris, I know we both can speak to that. We've both been on scenes and been part of critical incidents, and I know from experience that I've never had to shoot anybody, but I have been right there when those shots were fired and right afterwards, and the officers that pulled the trigger were even though they were very cool and calm and did everything just right, they still had the shakes afterwards. And this guy, cool as a cucumber.
He was good. That's a great point, because you have all that adrenaline going after you pull that trigger, right? I mean, to your point, to watching, there's that tunnel vision. So you grabbed it. He says, "I don't know." He was enraged. So he offers an excuse right up front. What is that indicative for you, Steve?
Well, this the context of the whole thing, I'm already I know this just started, but the question in my mind right now is, was this premeditated? Because he's already thought this out. Yep. So he's already gone through what it's going to feel like, how he's going to respond, what the story is going to be, and here's the thing: is guilty people, they don't want to say very much, and what they do say has a purpose. It's not, and the purpose is typically to convince us of something, and it's not just to convey information. If Alex is going to convey information, then he's going to have an idea, and when this officer asks what happened, he's going to be able to tell us right away. He's going to say, "This is what happened." Boom, 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 boom. He's going to go right into it. I know from experience that when you ask somebody what happened after a critical incident, a traumatic incident, it is hard to get them to shut up. They want to talk. It is, That's human nature, and they just want to. It's one of the ways that we deal with it, that we process a traumatic incident. We want to talk it out, and we want people there with us. We don't want to be alone, and it's natural tendency for human beings to talk. And he's just the opposite of everything you would expect him to be in that type of situation.
Yeah, and we're not even into a minute and a half, and all of these alarms are going off. You want me to keep moving?
Yeah. Well, let's just talk about the next line, because he said, the officer said, "Well, what's going on? What happened?" And he says, "He was talking about my sister earlier." So
yeah, good point. Good catch.
He's implying. So now, from an analyst point of view, when did this happen? When did this begin? He's just now focused us. This started earlier, and it had to do with his sister. So I know it had to do with Lori. I know it happened earlier. I just don't know at this point how much earlier. Was it this morning? Was it last night? Was it the day before? I don't know at this point, but I do know that what his focus is on. He was talking about my sister. So, I mean, again, not only has he focused this, but this is unexpected. What was he saying about your sister? Talking about my sister doesn't mean I'm going to go shoot a guy. So again, I expect him to kind of just, excuse the terminology, but I expect him to be vomiting information here, and I'm not hearing it. So
don't you think too, though, Steve, one of the other things that I think kind of jumps at you from an investigator standpoint, because these guys they're arriving on the scene, and my understanding is that the call came in like around 8:30 in the morning or something like that. That's when the 911 call comes in. So this is morning. This is early morning type behavior that, and he's trying already to make something sound like, when you hear that, you start saying, well, what time do these people get up in the morning? If this was, because he tries to say earlier, all of a sudden you're looking at some pretty interesting dynamics. And the other thing that I made a note on when I was just going through it that kind of jumped at me, because it was that whole section, you talked about my sister aspect, but the other aspect I think sometimes you see is when somebody is trying to make up a story for somebody else, you can see some similar behaviors. In other words, if somebody else did something and I'm trying to cover, I think you could hear the same kind of verbiage there as well. Not saying that's what happened, but I think that's a dynamic that comes into play here. So from an investigator standpoint, you start hearing these things and you're saying, okay, wait a minute, something's not right here the way he's describing it because of what you said. Is this because he had a situation and he doesn't want to get into it? Or is this because he's basically come to the table to try to mount a defense for somebody else who was involved in this?
Yeah.
Right. Really good point. And that brings me back to, the questions that we pose as investigators going into this is, we know that Alex, after the fact, he was claiming self-defense, and that's what he's going to try to tell the officers here, that it was self-defense. So number one, we want to know, is he telling the truth that he shot Charles in self-defense? And if so, we expect his language to be experiential in nature. And we'll go through that, as we're already not seeing that. But then the other possibilities is, two, he's deceptive. He's lying in some form, and maybe he shot Charles, but it wasn't in self-defense. And right. Or like Dean, very good point. Someone else shot Charles, and he's covering for it, which again, his language would not be experiential. So it's going to be in his language. Either way, as long as they talk, we're going to know the truth. And so we're starting to unravel this. And there was something else you said, and before we go on, I want to just touch on this. We look for these. When a person starts talking, he's going to talk about the incident from a certain perspective, in a certain context, and the way that he was portraying Charles was it, or he actually said that Charles was enraged, that he was enraged. Well, the next thing he says is to the officer, he says, he was talking about my sister earlier. That is not the language of an enraged man. That's not an enraged argument, or that's not the context of someone that's enraged. So already we're seeing this contradiction, and this happens because when they're trying to make something up, they make it up, they get the story across, but they cannot manufacture those feelings and emotions from experiential memory, all those neuron connections with all the senses that were employed during the incident, and the chemical that was released through the body with all the those that related to the emotions that we were feeling. That is so intricate. How in the world can you make that up? You can't. And so this is the type of language that we see when they try to manufacture all that, and it's very difficult for them. So already right off the bat, Alex is not off to a good start.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And so let's keep moving, shall we?
Yep, let's go.
Okay, here we go.
Just in the last 20 minutes.
He came at me with a bat.
Okay. Was he living here or
No.
visiting?
He came to pick up his son.
Okay, is the son inside?
All right, we got to hold up just a second. And
Okay.
The officer obviously did not get the answers that he was looking for. And so the officer actually said, no, what happened today? Because Alex said he was talking about my sister earlier. Now the officer wants to jump right to the point, and that's what most officers want to do. They want to get to the meat and potatoes of it. Actually, Alex was giving us pertinent information, telling us this didn't happen just right now. It started earlier, but
Totally agree.
So the officer kind of missed that, but I understand that he's first responder and he wants to get pertinent information out if there's something that needs to go out to other officers. And Alex's response is, he came at me with a bat. And again, it's passive language. It's unexpected. We expect just a barrage of information. My question? It would be right off the bat. If I heard right off the bat, here I go mimicking him. If I heard that, I would want to know, what does that look like? He came at me with a bat. Explain that to me. What does that feel like? What does it look like? What does it sound like?
Yeah.
What did it feel like? Yeah. There's all these things, and that is a passive statement, meaning I have information that I don't want to give you, or I'm making it up and I cannot give it to you.
Yeah, and yeah, because you want to have them, be that. Then what happened, right? I mean, that's the magic words when you're sitting with somebody at the curb. And then what happened?
Yeah.
What happened next?
Those are the magic words anytime.
Yeah.
What happened? What happened next? And explain that in more detail.
Yeah, exactly. Don't fill in the gap. And we're not faulting anybody. Obviously, we're because they have charged him. So or they charged her. Obviously, so there's hopefully we'll get some justice for Charles. But you want me to keep moving, or what are your thoughts?
Keep moving. Let's go.
Okay, bud.
Okay, so it was just you at the house?
Yes.
And he came, how long, what time did he come to pick up the son?
I don't know, 20 minutes ago maybe.
Okay, so you know who he is, let him in?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think they were talking earlier that she left, and then he got into it with me.
Like what? What do you mean?
I don't know, he was accusing me of...
Come on over here.
Okay, pause it right here.
Ian.
Oh my goodness. Everything we've been talking about is now accentuated right here. He says, okay, you know who he is, you let him in. Yeah. And so this is emphasis, because that's true. That is, and he can emphasize that. He says, no, listen to this. He said, I think they were talking earlier. What's the difference in I think they were talking earlier and they were talking earlier? Okay, there's a big difference. There's a lack of commitment there. So now we know that we cannot believe that they were talking earlier, And if they were, that was not in an enraged conversation. This is twice now. He's used the word talking, and that's not the language of an enraged man in the house causing a scene to the point that he needs to be shot. That's not what we're hearing here. That's
right.
So again, he went back in time to earlier. So this incident it was not a spur of the moment thing. And I'm now really thinking premeditation. And again, when he says, and he got into it with me, I want to know, what does that mean? What did it sound like? What did it feel like? What did it look like? What exactly does that mean? Because he is not giving up that information. He is withholding information, and it's very obvious. And this officer can sense it. He knows, and
he asks.
Yeah,
yep.
Good for the officer, because he
yep.
knows I'm having to pull teeth. It's like pulling teeth to get information out of this guy, and that is just not. If you're innocent, de facto innocent, you're going to talk. You're going to be just this information is just going to be spilling out of your mouth. So,
well, and don't you think, Steve? I was going to say, don't you think also where he says he starts his sentence, and he does it twice. He starts and says he was accusing me of, but he can never finish that sentence. He can't.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. I mean, if you this is now becoming the basis for taking another human being's life, and you cannot articulate what you were being accused of in those moments. I mean, I wrote a huge note on my deal here when I was preparing for this. It's just, huge question mark. I mean, how can you be in that, the way that he's trying to portray this story, and he doesn't know what he was being accused of or anything from that dialogue. I mean, I've been with officers and others who have shot somebody right immediately afterwards, and things that were said. Those details they know, very very much, almost verbatim to what is being said, and he's trailing off there. It's almost like he's trying to throw something out there and then realizes, oh crap, I can't fill that in, so he just kind of leaves it. And does it twice.
He does, and it's definitely a pattern.
Yeah.
What I thought this was kind of like a mic drop, because this is so typical of people that have manufactured a story, and they only manufacture so much. And I know both you guys have seen this in your careers. They only manufacture so much, and they think that it's enough. It's going to suffice. And they'll tell you their version of the story, the little bit, and they want you to fill in the gaps. They just want you to fill in the information, and they think it's going to be okay. And then when a question is asked that wasn't in their narrative, they're like, uh-oh, I didn't think of that. And so that's exactly what happened here. He can't finish it. There's nothing there. And if there was an accusation, he would be able to spit it out right away. And guys, the other aspect of this too is, though, maybe there was an accusation that if Alex was brandishing the firearm and Alex was threatening to shoot him, then there may have been a recent accusation right before he got shot that, what, are you going to shoot me, and something like that, and he just doesn't want to say what it is. So either way, he's withholding information here. And it is totally unexpected from a de facto innocent person.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of moving parts going right now in the mind of the officer. He's trying to manage a potential shooter. He doesn't know what they have yet, other than this guy calling 911 and saying, hey, I just shot somebody. They get him to come out of the house with his hands up, and they pat him down so, they're comfortable at this point that, he's not, armed. I don't understand, though, with some of the chat going on here, that, why they didn't scoop him up and throw him in a squad car and get him up to the PD. Why is he sitting out on the curb here? I think that, I'm not saying that's, I just think that's a lack of experience with these kind of problems, in terms of, coming from Southern California, we had a lot of volume. And as a result of that, a guy like this who says, yeah, I just shot my brother-in-law, okay, the first patrol guy would have patted him down and say, okay, come on over here, after this, he's got everything secured here, and thrown him in the back seat of a car and say, we'll be right with you. Okay. And because you control him, and now he's got to deal with the neighbors coming out, which the neighbor's going to come out and, hey, can I help? And this poor officer now has to deal with this guy, Alex, the shooter. And now he's got to deal with the neighbors. And then you got another neighbor taking the trash can out, okay, who's chatting it up with iRoll, who ends up rolling up, right? And so there's a lot going on, but good. I'm not going to Monday morning quarterback this guy, but at the same time, we would have done it a little bit differently, in all, frankness. And then I am curious about this Jason Mao guy, though. If Jason Mao, if you're out there and these people, contact me at the interview room. I'd love to talk to you and to find out, chat it up with you. Right. I'm seeing a whole bunch of stuff come in from, the chat here. All right. So we've got Alex here, DLR. It doesn't look right. Doesn't sound right. And right. None of the elevators going to the top floor with this guy. And so, Steve, what else we got? You want me to keep moving?
Yeah. So before we move on, let's just set the context here. The officer has just asked, like, what do you mean? And Alex responds, and so you notice the hesitation, the pause here too. I don't know. He was accusing me of, and then the fire truck comes. So the fire truck saved Alex from having to finish this response. But what happens is he now has a long time to think about what his response is going to be and what he's going to say, what happened, what he's going to convey. And so we'll see this. He's walking over. The officer walks him away from the noise of the fire truck. Alex actually he could be talking right through this, but he doesn't. And he sits back down, and the officer asks again, what was he accusing you of? And we'll pick it up from there. We'll stop it right after he gives his answer.
Okay.
It's going to be really loud. What was he accusing you of?
He could answer at any time in this.
He's thinking. He's trying
Pause.
to think.
Yeah.
Pause, right?
Yeah.
He was just yelling at me.
Okay.
Yeah,
That isn't-
and and to this officer's credit, he's got a lot of moving parts still. He's got FT rolling up and all these other things going on. So, I love this guy. At the same time, now he's dealing with the shooter who's processing, and he picks it up pretty quickly. And finish your thoughts, Steve.
I found my sister because I'd broken up a tussle with them earlier. And he told me not to interfere anymore with them or I'd pay. And he came at me with
Okay.
that.
Okay, guys, this is a really big part right here. Alex doesn't realize, but he is really giving away the farm here. First of all, I gotta call out the kind of the low-hanging fruit, the audibles, is that again, he answered the question with an I don't know. He can't answer it. And he was just yelling at me. He can't even give us what he was yelling about, what the argument sounded like, what the words that were used, what it felt like, how loud Charles was or wasn't, or what Alex was saying, who else was there. Nothing. There's nothing about this. All he could do was go back to the officer asked, okay, what was he yelling at you about? About my sister. And again, we have no indication that there was rage or anything that he's trying to portray. He wants he wants the officer to buy it, to believe it, what he's saying. And it's just not happening. It's just, you know what, this is, if you didn't, if we weren't calling out deception indicated already, we're going to now with this answer that he's going to give. And before I go on, did you guys have any comments
Well,
about?
I was just, the only thing I was thinking is that when he says that, you know, he was accusing me, and then he says he was yelling at me. It's almost like he just is doubling down on that word. He couldn't come up with anything other than saying, because I mean, if you think in your mind as you're processing, you know, okay, somebody's accusing you or something, the first thing is that a lot of times people are yelling when they accuse you of something. And so that's about as far as he could get. I mean, in that walk from there, it was almost like, you know, can you tell me what he was accusing you of? And he said, he was yelling at me, accusing me. I mean, that's basically what he says. You know, that's the most he could expand on that. And so I think you're right on. And then I agree with you, this next part. Let me just guess the word because.
Well, that's part of it. I mean, this whole, yeah, very good. I mean, we actually have a lot of the sensitivity. You can break this up. So what Dean's referring to is when we analyze things, we will highlight the highest levels of sensitivity, the reason, when they give us a reason why something happened, and that's unnecessary when really it hasn't been asked. We'll highlight those things in blue. And in this particular situation, we have actually 3 different blues in this. And so let me just outline what he's doing here. This is pretty interesting. He says, okay, what was he yelling at you about? And Alex says, about my sister, again, with no detail. He says, because I had broken up a tussle with them earlier. Okay. So now we're still going back in time. And he told me not to interfere anymore with them or I'd pay. And he came at me with a bat. Okay. So I expect him to give us some reason why, and we can't say that all of it is unnecessary because he's having to explain why this happened. And so he says, about my sister, and now this is what it's about, because I had broken up a tussle with them earlier. So he's wanting you to buy into that this argument was about a tussle. And I would ask him, what does a tussle look like? What is it? What did that tussle, explain tussle to me, define it, because that can mean a number of things to different people. So I want to know. And he told me not to fear anymore with them or I'd pay. Now think about this. I'd pay is future tense. Okay. He's saying that he told me I'd pay in the future if I interfered anymore. All right. And then he immediately says, and he came at me with a bat. Guys, that is a direct contradiction right there, because he came at me with a bat is immediately after saying what I'll do to you in the future. And then he did something right away. He couldn't keep the story straight. He had a pretty decent story in the makings, but he needed to add more detail and some emotion and how he felt and verbiage and things like that, which is very difficult to manufacture. But he got messed up and he couldn't keep it straight. So that was very typical. He got caught in his own web of deceit. This is deception. This is deception right here. And so it's a direct contradiction. You had future tense and mixed with current, and he just simply cannot keep it together.
Yeah, that was a great point. Sandy Lee asked a question, why Alex wasn't charged with having a weapon if he was a felon. And I think at that point, I don't know if they ran him around the world or not yet, because they're still in the middle of interviewing him here and just kind of getting his horsepower. But at some point, I don't know if they found out about some of the stuff that had taken place in Texas or not, if they ran him, later on. So to answer your question, Sandy, I don't know at this point what their reasoning was, but I suspect they had, either A, they didn't have that information immediately, or B, they had a reason why they wanted to let him, sit and bake a little bit more, probably because they were headed towards some other evidence. But we'll certainly look into that personally, and take it from there. But to your point, Steve, where you just left off there, I mean, fantastic. I mean, he really is. He's starting to bake himself pretty well here, right?
He is. Yeah,
Where he's going.
He cannot keep it together, and he is literally falling apart with his story. So it's like I said, this happens over and over and over when they manufacture a story. When it's made up, they don't think of everything. They very rarely think of everything, and so they want to throw out what they, in their mind, seems like a good story, but this is unrehearsed apparently, and he didn't think of all the things that might be asked or that he needed to add in. And even then, it's like I said, if you didn't actually experience something, it is very difficult to manufacture that intricate process that goes on in the brain when we actually experience something, especially something traumatic. And to try to manufacture that after the fact and describe it, very, very difficult to do.
Yeah, and here's one of the possibilities right here. Janine says, was it Lori's gun, possibly, if Alex was a felon? I mean, we definitely know it's her phone taking pictures of ammunition in Idaho. So even though Alex, says he's CCW, which carrying concealed weapon, that's what that means. At the PD at the time, this poor officer is inundated with a lot of moving parts right now. And what he's trying to do is what we used to call lock him in to the first statement. Mm-hmm. And so his clarity of focus is there's a dead guy inside the house, and you hear it from him when the FD shows up and he says, no need to go in there. There's no life. So the officer, this guy who's doing this interview, in my opinion, is doing a heck of a job because he's already knows that inside that house, there's a dead guy, and this guy sitting on the curb says, I did it. And so what his clarity of focus is to lock this guy down in his statement quickly. The reason he can't hook him up, because if it is a self-defense, okay, which this officer doesn't know yet, okay, that Alex later on could have screamed, foul. Okay, so it's a tightrope. It's a tightrope act. So now later on, obviously, in retrospect and through investigation, almost a year of investigation, okay, they discover all of these other moving parts, and then of course the children in between all of this, those tragedies. It just keeps getting crazier. Yeah. So we've got Ilor, we've got Alex, here, sitting in there. Was GSR taken? I hope so. I really do. I hope so, but I don't have the answer to that yet. So and protecting the crime scene is another problem that they're trying to deal with. So let's keep moving. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, and before we move, I just want to say something to your point, Chris, that this officer, I think he's doing a fantastic job, because now we have Alex's first response, and this is the sweet spot right here. The best time to get a statement is right now, right after the incident occurred. Yeah. That's why 911 calls are so great for analysis, and they give us so much information. And so this guy's doing a great job. And it's a little, when that someone just you're dealing with a potential homicide suspect here, that and you don't know if this, he doesn't know at this point if it is actually self-defense or if it's something else. And he's sitting there with this guy. He doesn't know if the guy is going to charge at him and then try to run off or anything like that. So the dynamic here is actually pretty intense. And so hats off to him. He did a great job. He asked some great questions, and we got some great information. And this, Alex's first interview right here, I'm sure was great information for the detectives later as they interviewed him, and now they can compare the two and see if there was any difference, and then just compare the dynamics of the story and how it changed or didn't change or deteriorated or whatever the case was. So yeah, hats off to him.
Yeah, and you know this, I think tactically, again, and it comes down to volume. Personally, and thank you, Krisha Easton. This is a family member, and we're grateful that you're here this evening. We sure love you guys, and so sorry that any of this has occurred from your to your family. We're so sorry. And thank you, everybody who has been putting up super stickers. We're grateful to all of you. I'm sorry if I've missed a couple of comments or questions. I apologize. I'll try to get back to them, but I want Steve to kind of free flow through this. The only critique I would have of this poor officer who's inundated is I would and this is just my opinion, I would have said, come on, let's go over here. I would have put him in my backseat of my squad car, closed the doors and said, I'll be right back. Get the scene secured, and then from there, go back to the car, open up, say what happened. But this poor guy had a lot of moving parts. So, at this point, guys, don't be pounding on this officer in the chat so much. He really was doing his job. And quite frankly, the PD, you're going to see there's a lot more coming out that these guys did, and fantastic work. Enough to get Lori, who, they're going to break her away from Idaho and get her in Arizona, and that's not the place to be to get charged with murder and conspiracy to commit murder. So good for them. Okay, let's keep moving. Yeah. Is that okay, Steve?
Yeah, let's just go to the next question and answer. And I just want to talk just briefly on that. He talks about his niece.
Okay.
Okay, so he showed up in the house with a bat in his hand?
No.
Okay, so.
There was a scuffle earlier with my sister and my niece. My niece got involved.
But earlier meaning?
Okay, hold up just 1 second. So my point is here, just in his language, what he said was, there was a scuffle earlier. So the officer's asking about the bat. He showed up with a bat in his hand, and that's a great question. He's clarifying. He goes, no. There was a scuffle earlier with my sister and my niece. And then so that answers the question. I mean, that gets the story across. But the thing that stands out to me is that he added in, my niece got involved. It took extra effort, extra cognitive thought and energy for him to add that in, which means that is key to his story. We have already seen deception in his statement. I'm already thinking premeditation because of how calm he is and the way his language is portraying him. It's contrary to the behavior of someone that was innocent and then confronted by an enraged man and reacted and shot them. That's not what we're seeing here. So we definitely have deception and likely premeditation. The reason this is important is that because of that, the extra effort and energy that he added to say, my niece got involved after he just mentioned his niece, it is key to his story. The niece getting involved is key to his story. I have no idea. I would love to know what her version of the events was. We don't have that information, but whatever it was, she was key to his story. And I hope that is, part of how this has come together, that whatever Tylee's version of the events was, I hope it was used appropriately, because it's going to be key.
And I just want to also point out one other thing. People are here, dragging on this officer and the PD saying, had they done everything, the children would be alive. Okay. Well, let me point out something clearly. Okay. Tylee standing with her mother. And we're going to see that here in a couple of minutes. Okay. No matter what, if Alex is in custody, you think Lori's not going to kill her daughter? Let's take Alex in custody. Let's hypothesize and put him in custody. Alex is in custody. He's sitting in jail. Okay, JJ's still with her mother or stepmother, and so is Tylee. Okay, the cop didn't kill those children.
That's right.
The mother killed her children.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're just coming into my chat to troll me, okay, I'm going to call you out. I always do this. I love it. You're more than welcome to come in, but you're not thinking through the problem. That's why it says homicide detective on my shirt. Okay. It doesn't say, armchair detective. Okay. And by golly, those children did not deserve to die. And I will be the first one to defend them and tell you that Lori killed them with Chad, and Alex participated as well. So it wasn't the officers that hurt those children. It was her mother killed her. And I just want to make that clear, because if I felt it was the officer, you'd hear me say it tonight. And I do not. And I'm not even thinking like that. Okay, so if you're here to troll me, feel free. Okay, but just remember, I'm the kind of guy that will call you out. And if you do it again, I'm going to put your name up, and I'll bang on you for 15 minutes with eye roll. Okay, with eye roll and Alex as a whole. Okay. Now I'm the first one to tell you, if I think the cops did something wrong, I'm going to tell you. Look, I wouldn't have done it that way, or I've seen it done differently. Okay? So, we've got family members in here that are Charles family members as well as those children. Okay? And for somebody to come in here and throw that stuff up with the family here, too bad. I'm sorry that you're doing that. Anyway, that said, now we have an indication that, which you just pointed out, Stephen. I'm sorry to digress. I just couldn't let it go, though, because it's.
No, you're absolutely correct.
You're absolutely right.
And I agree 100%. No matter what happened at that point in time, Lori was going to carry through with her intent to kill her kids. And I tell you what, I have on my website in the blog articles, I have a little article there. It's about Lori Vallow. It's a analysis I did of an email that she wrote when she withdrew JJ from school. And I just simply broke down her email of withdrawing him from school. And I'm telling you, there is intention there that she knew then that JJ was going to die. She and as the kid's mother, there was no way that the officers could have had that knowledge that mom was going to do that. The kids would have been left in custody of their mother, and she would have carried out her intention one way or the other. So thank you for saying that, Chris. You're absolutely 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I've had so many cases where, I'll tell you, I'm going to digress for 30 seconds. I had a caper where a husband and wife got into an argument. She left, took her 3 kids with her, put the 3 kids in the back of a pickup truck that she had, went to her girlfriend's house. And while at her girlfriend's house, the husband calls and says, "Where's my wife?" Okay. And the girlfriend tries to cover for her. And next thing you know, the girlfriend says, "We got to get out of here. Come on, let's go." So they get in the truck. The 3 kids are in the back of this pickup truck with a camper shell. Next thing you know the husband is behind her. And the driver is the girlfriend. And the wife is in the right front passenger seat. Long story short, he speeds up, cuts them off, and the truck rolls. ejects all 3 children, kills the driver. Okay. I got in the interview room with this guy. You know, the first thing he told me, he said, if my wife wouldn't have left me tonight, none of this would have happened. And this is the same idea of, you know, everybody can control everything. Okay.
Yep.
It's never the suspect's fault. It's always, you know, somebody else's fault. And in this case, it's easy to say that the PD made mistakes. Of course they make mistakes. We're human beings. Okay. Law enforcement, we're human beings. Okay. But they don't go to work and say, you know, today's the day I think I'll decide to have, you know, 2 innocent children, you know, taken from this earth. Okay. That's loony thinking. I mean, you should have a dark score if you're thinking like that.
Yeah.
In fact, the next troll I see put something up, I'm going to call you out and I'm going to give you a score because you are doing exactly what Lori does to other people. Okay. So if you're welcome to troll my channel, but you're not prepared for the consequences. Trust me. Okay. Because I'm worried about, you know, getting a fair trial now for Lori in terms of getting her convicted and thrown in prison. That's where she belongs for these babies. Okay, that said, back to the script. Let's keep moving.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's a script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see what he says. Shall I keep going?
Let's go.
Earlier
No,
this morning,
just this morning, before they left.
before your wife left,
My sister.
before your sister left.
Yeah.
Okay. Who lives here with you?
No, I don't live here. My sister lives here and my niece lives here.
And you're just visiting?
I was visiting for the night.
Hold up just one second.
Your sister and your niece.
Yes.
I just want to point out the emphasis of his niece again. That just tells me even more that that Tylee coming out with the bat or getting involved is key to his stories. He didn't say JJ. He just said, and he could have just said, my sister lives here. And it's just a given that her kids live there with her. It doesn't even have to be mentioned, but this is key. It's an extra emphasis of how key that Tylee is to his story. I just wanted to point that out. Keep moving.
And his niece at that point is 16, right? At that point.
Yeah, she's 16 at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and there was a tussle between your sister and her husband.
Yes.
And does the husband live here or no?
No.
Okay. Okay, is he an ex-husband or just current husband?
They're working on that.
Gotcha. So at some point earlier today, they get into some type of domestic?
Yeah, just this morning, then they left, and then he came to me.
They left meaning who? Both of parties? Or?
Yeah, my sister took my niece and my nephew.
Okay, so they left.
Create some space for him, and then he came to me.
Okay, but did he leave also?
Again, hold up just one second. Twice now he said he came at me, and then again, PD, the officer asked, okay, so they left, and Alex says to create some space from him. That's the reason for them leaving. And then he came at me. Again, no details whatsoever. He wants us to fill in the gaps of what those details would be. There's a lot of blanks there he wants us to fill in. This is not experiential language. And so the questions that we asked going into this, you know, is he speaking from experiential language, indicating that he actually is truthful? We're not saying that. We're in fact, we've already called out deception, and that deception now is being confirmed over and over. So I just wanted to point those things out.
Yeah, and it's almost reminiscent of back when he said that they'll you know, that if he interfered anymore, that he would pay, and then immediately says he goes to the bat. Right? Says he came at me with the bat. So I think you're seeing that same kind of scenario where, you know, he's saying that they left, and then all of a sudden he just came after me. It's this. There's a real disconnect between those two parts of that sentence. So.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There really is.
And remember, Charles is on a mission here to save those children. I mean, Charles, at this point, right? I mean, he's in the middle of this, trying to get the kids away from her, and is pointing it out on numerous occasions. But unfortunately, sometimes the law just ties your hands, and you can see it, but you don't have the ability to pull, a lot of different levers in different movements. So anyway, so I'm going to keep moving.
Yeah, let's go.
Stayed here. So you guys are kind of talking in between, or what? Who are you? Who are you? No, just go back. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So you're just...
See, and that's all about officer safety, guys. That's what that is. He's dealing with a guy who's saying, "Hey, I just shot some guy," and next thing you know, he doesn't know if this guy has an accomplice.
Yeah.
This officer's mindset, and he doesn't know that's the neighbor until he says, "Who are you?" And he says it in a very direct way, because at this point he's dealing with a dead guy inside the house, and this guy's walking towards him, kind of like remember Kravitz from
from Bewitched.
From Bewitched. Remember? This is right. So Mrs. Kravitz or Mr. Kravitz is coming over, and he's like, "Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate it." So this is exactly what I was talking about a little bit ago. Go ahead.
And that was a good call too, because Alex thanked him. If you heard that, the officers thank you, and then Alex says thank you, and so it's like, wow, were they buddies? So it's a good call on the officer's part.
Yeah, and that is a great point to point out, Steve, because he's paying attention to the shooter, and the shooter is talking to this witness or potential witness, who, by the way, will get interviewed at when they do the canvas. Okay?
Eventually, yes.
Yeah. So, but that's a good point, though. I missed that. Yeah. Here we go.
And your brother-in-law. Yes. Okay. And kind of go through it. So, say something like, "Hey, don't touch my sister," or
yeah.
Okay.
And then you picked up the bat.
Where was the bat at?
In the living room.
Boy, if anything that officer offers him,
he jumps all over it. Yeah,
he runs with it, and he does not change it one bit. That is okay. Yeah, you understand it, and that's all I'm going to say. That you got it. Just go ahead. Alex figures that he's accepting it, and he's buying it, and the officer's filling in the blanks, and so Alex doesn't want to say anything more, and they don't. Guilty people, they don't want to say much, because what happens is their brain has this information, and their brain it's like the brain having a conversation with itself, with this person that it inhabits, and it's like, hey, we have a lot of information here, and if you say too much, you're really going to screw yourself over. So don't say anything at all. And so that's what's happening here.
Break that down a little bit more, Steve, because when somebody says, "Yeah, it was a bat," you go, "So, well, what kind of bat?" Or, all right, a bat. Okay, great. And you're hoping that course of conversation is going to keep going. So to your point, you just kind of, let them run. And then if there's a couple of pieces that connect to the bat, then you ask them about it. What kind of bat? Was it a Rawlings? What's the deal?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it would not be uncommon for someone in Alex's situation that is de facto innocent, that he is the victim of an attack, and he shot someone in self-defense. It would not be uncommon for him to give more detail on this bat. Typically, people describe in situations like that, they will describe a 20-inch bat as a 30-inch bat. That thing was larger than life, because this guy's now coming at me with this bat. And it's like, people describing when they're involved in a robbery and a guy's pointing a gun at them, and it could be a little 32 caliber or 9mm, but to them it's a 45 or, that barrel is larger than life, and that's the way they describe it. So unless they're very, very familiar with guns. So it's, this is defying human nature here. It's not.
Well, I think too, don't you, when you look at, if you watch Little Children, is a good place to kind of see where this all begins, is as human beings. And you see a little kid, they don't know what to say, so somebody will throw something out and they'll go, yeah, that's exactly what happened. They're just, if it doesn't sound like it's going to threaten them or put them in a bad light, they'll embrace that, but they're not really willing to commit to anything beyond that. And I think, if you've ever caught a little kid and said, what are you doing in my backyard? And they're just kind of standing there, eyes glazed, and they say, well, did something go in my backyard you need to get? Yeah. That's what it is. It's almost like, they're looking for something. And I kind of sensed that when I was just watching him in that context and his response there.
Yeah, very good.
That's a great point. And, he's going to fill in those blanks pretty quickly with the bat story. It's going to get really quick here. And just a shout out to all of our mods again. We love you guys. Miss Sophia, Maui Girl, Mimi J2, Crystal G, Melissa Hart, Four Sons Mom. Thank you for keeping it classy out there. We're grateful. Here we go.
Okay. You guys size name? No, I haven't got it.
Yeah, this was blanked out because he's given his information.
Charles is the husband of the occupants here. But I guess he lives where?
Houston. You know his date of birth? From Houston?
Yeah. Is this vehicle here? How did he get here?
Is it here from Texas?
No, that's my sister's car. I think he came in a rental car. I think my sister's in it.
You think your sister's in the rental car? Okay. So you both...
People always say, Chris, why do you say okay all the time? Because of that kind of statement. Okay, yeah, your sister's in a rental car that belongs to the dead guy in the house. Okay. Right. There you go. Line them up.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%.
What is it over?
Well, it was over my sister. He was getting physical with her, and so my niece came out with her bat, and then he took the bat away from her.
Wait a minute, I thought you said your niece left.
Yeah, hold up.
This is great.
Go, Dean. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, exactly. I mean, he's starting there with this. He starts out by saying that this was an argument over my sister. Then he says it was getting physical with her, and then the niece came out with the bat, and all of a sudden you're sitting there saying, "Well, so the bat's introduced." We thought that earlier he said that the sister has left with all the kids. I mean, his story is beginning to kind of just collapse on itself with if you were looking at this from a timeline, all of a sudden, all these pieces are starting to kind of, and physical. If he was saying physical, you would expect him to say, not to use a word like physical, but say he started pushing my sister, or he grabbed my sister, or he's going to be very specific about it. He's not going to say, that he was getting physical. That's a generic out there, very, who knows what that means. And as far as, from his context of this argument.
Agreed. 100%. Yeah. And did you notice that? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that he didn't actually answer the question. He skirted it. He inferred something, and then he got off of it, and he parried this question away from him. The officer, so you get into an argument. What's it over? Well, it was over my sister, and that's really all he said about that. Yep. He was getting physical with her. So my niece came out with her bat, and then he gets back on the script, and that's what they'll do. They'll get back on the script. Now, I think it's awesome when I'm talking with somebody at an incident like this, and I ask a question, and they answer the question, and then they give me more information. They add to it, but it's contextual. It flows. It helps explain what they just said, or it helps explain the situation. It helps us get to the bottom of things. It helps us solve the case. But when they parry it, or they go back to the same scripted language that really doesn't explain anything, and it's the same thing that they've said before, and there's nothing new, now I know that this definitely was a tactic to just not answer the question, go back to the script, and hope that the officer is buying what he's saying, that he's filling in the blanks, and let's just move on. Don't ask me because I can't answer that question is what that is.
Yep.
His brain is saying, we don't have that information. We can't answer it. We can't manufacture it. And so let's move. Let's give them something that hopefully they'll latch onto so that you can move on and not have to answer this question.
And to the officer's credit, he calls him on it.
Very good too. Yeah,
he does. And he almost just unravels right there at that moment because he's got himself in quite a little pickle now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love America. Let them run. Let them run.
Let's keep going.
Moving.
So before your sister and your niece left,
Yeah.
at some point your sister and her husband are arguing,
Yes.
verbal argument, and then your niece pulls out a bat.
Well, it wasn't verbal. He was getting close, and she came out to defend my sister with her bat.
Your niece.
Again, and we got to call this one out. He was getting close. Again, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What did it sound like? It's not confirming anything physical or anything like it. He wants you to fill in the blanks, and it's just not the language that we expect.
Yeah. No, I love. I mean, this is golden. All of this, by the way, will be played in Lori's trial because she's deceased. All this, the defense attorney will call it as sculptory evidence, and they'll put it on her trial, which will be classic, because then the prosecution, gets to put the officer up there and say, well, what were you thinking when he said, all yada yada yada, and Lori's going to have to hear it, not from Alex. She's going to get to hear it from the officer who's taken the statement from Alex. Okay. So, the defense is in a quandary here, even before the trial starts, because they know that this exists. So think through that, right? I mean, I've seen it so many times where even, I was on court TV the other night talking about Molly Tibbetts, and the suspect in that case now has decided that there was a jailhouse snitch who is throwing information around that, they did it. And Vinny Politano asked me, he said, well, what's your take on it? And I said, arrest all three of them and let the defense attorneys work it out. Charge all three with either accessory after the fact or murder. But, this guy went through his trial. He's been convicted by a jury. He should be sentenced. And if the other two guys want to take credit for it, we'll hook them up. And then put all three of them in the same room put all three defense attorneys in the same room and let them battle it out. Either, you know what I mean?
Great idea.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Okay, here we go.
And she poked at him, and he took it away.
Okay.
And then I stepped in and told my niece to separate.
Right.
So then my sister leaves with my niece.
Okay, I gotta call this one out.
Yep.
Like an hour.
Go.
So he says, and then she poked at him, meaning she poked at him with the bat. And then there was this hesitation. He's thinking, I stepped in and told my niece to separate. All right, think about that word and put yourself in the shoes of Alex Cox in that situation. Would you say to somebody, hey, Tylee, separate? I mean, he's telling us what he told what he told Tylee, but if this was experiential, wouldn't he tell us what he actually said to her? And if he used the word separate, that's really strange. I've never heard that type of language. I don't know about you guys, but I would expect someone to say, and I told her, hey, go in the other room. I'll take care of this, or something like that.
Or knock
Tylee,
it off, or
yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Don't do that. I'll handle it. Let the adults handle it, or whatever it is. But this is not experiential language. And the more I hear things like this, with the hesitation that he had in there, trying to think about this, it fits. It just fits like a hand in a glove of someone that is deceptive and scripting their statement and trying to make it up on the fly, and it's just not working.
Yeah, no, that's a bingo card right there. That's, let's see some bingo cards come up in the chat room here. And yeah, he's toast at this point. I mean, he's digging himself pretty deep here. And I think this officer knows it and can sense it. He's moving on the right. He's moving in the right direction.
It's a pretty good indication right here that Tylee might not have been involved at all. It would not surprise me one bit if Tylee wasn't even involved in this whole thing, because this does not sound like it.
Yeah, totally agree. 100%. Totally agree. Let's keep moving.
Hour, 10 minutes?
20 minutes, maybe, I don't know.
Okay. So not terribly long.
No.
Oh, okay.
And then he's coming back at me, and he's still got the bat in his hand. I'm like, what are you doing?
And where are you at? Where are you
We were
both
in the
at?
living room,
Okay.
and then I turned around, and he hit me in the back of the head with the bat. So I went to my room and got my gun. Carry it.
Okay, hold up.
Yeah.
All right. There was actually a lot in the last two answers that he gave.
So let me get this straight. Go ahead. Go ahead, Steve.
Can somebody fill in 20 minutes for me?
Go ahead, Steve. Whoa.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, the officers. He's got one of the Chris's. Okay. And Alex says, and then he's you have this hesitation coming back at me. Again, we don't know what happened here. I mean, there's this huge gap in time that he's not wanting to tell us about, and that's significant. Missing time is missing information, and he doesn't want to tell us what's going on here. So now he's coming back to this. It's again manufactured statement. He's coming back at me, and he's still got the bat in his hand. And then Alex, he quotes, "What are you doing?" So he quoted a question in his version of what happened.
Interesting.
It is interesting, and people will do this when they are reliving something. I have no doubt those words were spoken. What are you doing? Alex either spoke those words or heard those words. And I want to point out something here. His focus was on Charles, and that's in his language. Listen to this. He said 3 times he referred to Charles. He said, and then he's coming back at me, and he still got the bat in his hand. Actually, there's four references to Charles. And then out of the blue, what are you doing? He quotes this question. Guys, that's an indication that those words were heard by Alex and they were spoken by Charles. Strong indication of that. So huge time gap. And now we have insight into some of Charles Vallow's last words. And I'm sorry to his family, but these are probably some of Charles Vallow's last words. What are you doing? And I'm sure it was, since we're seeing the deception, guys, it's sad as we talk about this. There probably was not an argument. Charles was not enraged. I have no doubt he was not enraged, except having a gun pointed at him. And this probably caught Charles off guard. He turns around and he says, "What are you doing?" And I'm sure that's likely when the shots rang out. There's more in the next sentence, but I'll hold up if you guys have anything you want to add into that one.
No, other thing I would just re-emphasize is just that he's created 20 minutes here basically in his own statement of time, that if we follow this logically, we've got a visual now of supposedly they're in there, the bat's introduced, and immediately he separates. She takes the kids and leaves, and we've got 20 minutes before he starts coming at him with the bat based upon his own, what he's saying has happened here. So what's going on in those 20 minutes? What's the actual dialogue? What's really happening? And did he create that because that's actually the amount of time, or is he trying to create a buffer there for something else?
Well, and we find that in the new emails that have been released, that time gap, because, from the moment 911 comes in, apparently Lori's phone is pinged while she's out buying flip-flops, okay, for the pool party later, right? Later on, after Alex's take.
Which they still had. They had a pool party.
Yeah. So after Charles,
crazy,
is murdered, they got to have a pool party. So she's got to go get some flip-flops. But the problem is, while doing that, and she's also headed to Hawaii, right? So things are taking a little more time than expected. But her phone pings. They've got the phone pings of her buying the flip-flops and taking JJ, our little guy, through, Burger King to get his food, and then ultimately up to school. But there's a gap between when the 911 call comes in and the original first phone ping. So we're going to see how that's going to play out. That's going to be really interesting. But so Alex is on a run here. It looks like he's locked in. You comfortable with that? Would you guys? And I'm not going to take her off the plate either of not pulling a trigger yet, because there's 4 shell casings, if I remember correctly, at that scene. And when Mike and I did an analysis of this 11 months ago, they were on different sides of the body. So it's possible that, we both said that there was a coup de grace, that he was on the ground. And that's being confirmed by these emails as well, that there was a round that hit the floor, it looks like, and then probably had some type of fragment ricochet off because it went through, various parts of the victim. And so I'm not gonna put out yet, as a positive, but as a possibility, could Lori have pulled the trigger as well, or a trigger? They're not telling us exactly, how many, guns they have, right? Or at least how many shell casings, and if they all came from the same weapon. But I definitely know he was shot from various angles. And if you want to see that, it's over in Profiling Evil. It's in, I think we did that in August of last year. You'll see the bat. Mike and I broke that piece of the puzzle down back when this thing first went down. So I'm going to keep moving. Is that, you good with that?
Yeah, hold up. Let me get to this next answer that he gave, because this is key.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
We pause right here. So the officer, he asked, where are you at? Where are you both? So the officer's asking this question in kind of the present tense, like putting him back in the moment. And Alex responds, we're in the living room. And then, so he answered the question, and then he goes into his story. This is interesting. He says, and then I turned around and he hit me in the back of the head with the bat. So Alex gave him opportunity. Now, let me ask you, if you have an enraged man in front of you, and Charles Vallow is a big guy. Okay, let's not forget that. He's a big guy. And
a professional former pro ball player, minor league ball player.
So he's got some strength. He's got some meat on him. If you really were in front of an enraged guy that's coming at you with a bat, would you ever turn around? And the answer is no. You never would turn around unless that turning around included feet don't fail me now, and you're running out of the house as fast as you can to get away from this guy that's enraged and has a bat. But that wasn't That's not what
Well,
Alex
not
is
just
saying
coming
here.
and not just a guy coming at you with a bat, but a guy who's coming at you with a bat who's going to make you pay.
Who's gonna make you pay? There you go.
Because that's his other statement. Is he said
Yes.
that he's going to make me, he's going to make you pay, if I get involved in any way. So you've got not, so it's the combination of all those are escalating aspects of it. None of them are him coming over nonchalantly with the bat on his shoulder saying, "Hey, we need to talk about this."
Yes.
The visual is an enraged person coming at you with a bat, going to make you pay, and you turn your back on them.
Exactly. And what's in the interesting thing too is the way he phrased this. We were in the living room. He answered the question. Then he says, and then, which is a skip in time. We don't know how much is skip in time, but there's missing information in there. He says, I turned around, which we know no reasonable person is going to do that. I turned around and he hit me in the back of the head with the bat. Okay. Now, I'm gonna say something, and then I'm gonna go on to the rest of his answer. We talked about how big Charles is and how you wouldn't turn around. Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm looking at Alex Cox and his stature. He's probably about my size, and I'm thinking, you know what? If a man like Charles Vallow hit me in the head with a bat, I would either be dead. At minimum, I would be laid out flat. It just wouldn't. I couldn't survive that, and that did not happen. In the end, I asked some of the investigators, what kind of injury did Alex have? And they said, well, next to nothing. He did have a little bump on his head. So it's not being hit by an enraged man with a bat. That was not what his injury was. So it doesn't fit.
Well, and you wouldn't get hit just once either, right? I mean, an enraged person is going to hit multiple times. An enraged person is going to follow you to the bedroom to see what you're going to do. They're not going to just stand there and tap you. In fact, the tap sounds more along the lines of somebody who's trying to put a little mark on their own head just in case somebody asks, right?
Right.
If you're looking for.
Yeah. And that could be part of the time gap that we're seeing there. Either the time elapsed where he's trying to inflict that injury upon himself, set the scene, or something like that. But there's no way that he got hit over the head with a bat like he's trying to say. It would have created a big old dent or death. So what happens next is key here.
I got booted from my own channel. So go ahead.
What?
No, I got bumped for my internet went out for a second, so I got to reload the video. You guys keep chatting. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So Alex says, after he says, and he hit me in the back of the head with a bat. So because that happened, I'm paraphrasing here. He said, but he says, so I went to my room and got my gun because I always carry. Now, he would have you believe, and when you first hear that, it sounds like he's saying, because he hit me over the head with a bat, I went to my room and got my gun. That's not what he's actually saying here. He said, I went to my room and got my gun because I always carry. That's what he's saying. He's giving us insight into his personality, who he is. This is a guy that is always carrying. He's now listen, I don't want this to be misconstrued. I carry. I know you guys probably carry. I know a lot of people that always carry, always have a gun in the car, whatever. Okay. We do it because we're peaceful, God-fearing people. And we just want to make sure that nothing ever happens to our family. What Alex is giving us insight into here is that he's telling us in the context of a violent situation here where someone was shot, he's saying the reason I went to get my gun is because I always carry. And it's a subtle inference that this guy is looking for it. He's looking for the confrontation. He's likely a violent individual. I think he likes it. This is something he's saying that this is the norm for him. This is the reference here, or the inference here. When we really start breaking this down and figuring out what's going on in Alex's brain that would produce these words at this point in time, it's because this is his norm, and he wants you to believe that this is also a normal situation for him. It's anything but a normal situation, but he's comfortable with this. So the inference here is, he's giving us insight, and I hope everyone can see what I'm trying to say here, that with the insight that he's giving us into himself. And it leads me back to the possible premeditation, which I'm going to take the possibility out of that. It was premeditated. I'll just call that out. Now, whose idea was it in the first place?
You heard it first here, guys. You heard it first here. Right. Steve's on the know. Steve's on the know. So keep rolling.
So we have this huge sensitivity about him going and getting his gun, and the context of it is it doesn't even make sense. It just doesn't work. So again, we have this area right here in this answer. It's deception indicated. This is made up.
Yeah, it's almost like, one of the things I was thinking as you were talking, Steve, is that it's almost like he's trying to, if he always carries, and if he carries all the time, and if he was prepared, he may have, you would almost expect him to be coming into that situation with his gun, having it somewhere on his person. And then maybe he's thinking about that and he's going, oh crap, if they, that looks a little bit suspicious. So I've got to throw this in there. It's almost like an add-on conversation here, or an added bit of information in a kind of out of the way place that you could have something like that going on in his mind.
Right.
So Bertie has a question, Steve. What do you think of that?
Let me put my glasses on and I'll see. Do you think Tylee could have had the bat and hit Alex to protect Charles? I don't think Tylee was involved. Personally, I think she was a pawn in this. And if Tylee was present, it was only a staged. Tylee probably was an unknowing participant if she was there. That it was staged to make this make sense, and which really incenses me as well, that they would bring a 16-year-old girl into this to give Charles the opportunity to have a bat in his hand. I just don't think that was the case. And part of the reason is because of what he's saying right here, and that with his how much sensitivity he has surrounding this gun, the reason that he has the gun.
No.
Why didn't he just say, I grabbed my gun and I shot him? When he came out with the bat, I ran to my room and I grabbed my gun and he kept coming at me and I shot him. We don't hear that. We don't hear it. When I broke this down over a year and a half ago with the group of analysts, before I broke this down in its entirety, I asked a couple of them, have you ever been involved in a shooting? And a couple said, yes, I've been involved. I said, describe it for me. And so they started describing the shooting, and there was just this barrage of information. And they had words like, I ran to the other officer, I ran to this, and there was urgency in their voice, even many years later. And I said, that is so interesting, because here Alex is not running to his bedroom. So I went to my room and I got my gun. There's no urgency whatsoever in this. And if you guys aren't buying that, it's because I always carry. So please believe me that I went to my room to get my gun because he hit me with a bat. It's like the explanation here is this acute need to explain, and it's way over the top. And so it tells me this is deceptive, which in turn tells me, based on the premeditation that I'm seeing in the language, he probably had this gun with him the entire time. He had to make this up. He had to make it make sense. But yet he can't manufacture the urgency that did not exist because there wasn't any. It was premeditated. He already thought it out. And now when he's trying to regurgitate it in a way that makes sense, he can't do it. We can rape, murder, rob, steal, plunder, commit arson, whatever the case is. But when it comes to lying about it, it's very, very difficult. Most people cannot do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I totally agree, because I think if it had gone, if this story was even close to what had actually happened, then he would have had to have talked about, he retreated to the bedroom, got his gun for protection. And as he came back out into the living room to ask him to leave, he's being reattacked, and then I shot him. But none of that. It's just that the whole flow of that story is just, I agree with you. I'm struggling with if he went back to bed. I don't think. I think it was with him to start with.
Hey, Dean, I think that's a great point. I'm having an audio issue over here, or an upload issue. Can you put Steve's report up real fast? And we're gonna pull off of that. I'm having a problem with the video again, Steve. I apologize, but we'll get your report up here, and you can go off of the report, because I think the fact that you're free flow here is really resonating, and with a lot of what you're saying makes unbelievable sense.
All right, good.
How this thing could go down. Yeah, I don't think Tylee is engaged in this. I'm not going to take Lori out of the circle yet, though.
No, I wouldn't either.
That she's in the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because we have this huge time gap. And so when I say, we know that JJ was in the car, actually. And I'm thinking that Tylee's involvement here is as a pawn. So it's possible, I don't know, but it's possible that Tylee was not in the house at the time, or if she was insulated somewhere else.
Well, she's got to take care of JJ.
She's got to take care of JJ. That's a very good point. It's a very good point.
I think Lori's, ditzy or eye roll. I think, she's into this, but she's smart enough to make another decision to say, I'll be right back. You wait here with Tylee or with JJ. I think it's Alex and Lori and Charles in the house. And I'm not going to be surprised if there's two separate shell casings from separate guns. It won't knock me over if that ever came out in a court of trial, but I definitely know there's two different angles. And either it's the coup de grace that's kicking off to the right, and then the first round where he allegedly is coming at him, it's got to be the other side, because that round is across, to the left of Charles. So you have one to the right of Charles, and you have one to the left of Charles. So that means you've got to shoot either two shooters, and we said this 11 months ago, either you have two shooters or you have one shooter who is moving.
Right.
Which makes no sense with the bat.
Well, you're right. It doesn't make sense with the bat, but it does make sense with that high sensitivity about him having to give a reason to go to his room. And then he says he came back out. It would not surprise me that he shot him. He went over to his room, came back out, shot him then. Another possibility is that that shooting occurred before Lori left, and that Lori wanted to fire a couple rounds. I don't know. That's total speculation. I have nothing to back that up.
Yeah, totally.
But
what if he went to the room to get the bat?
Well, the bat's a prop, right? I mean, I think
the bat is a prop. Yeah.
And since it's a prop, if we follow what you were just saying, Steve, if he shot him initially and then realized I need something, went back to the room to get something, finds the bat, brings that back out. So he's got the prop where it needs to be. And then, as you said, maybe shoots him again.
That's a possibility. I know that something definitely time passed. I would not be surprised if it came out that these shots were, at different times, a little bit separated. And I think, he set it up. It's in his language, time passed. And this started way earlier. It's there. So, he's painting the picture, and we're just following his language. He's going to relate. He's going to give himself away, and that's what he's doing here. So there is definitely speculation on our part as far as the intricate details, the minute details. But he either shot him at one location and then came back out of the room and shot him again. The coup de grace, make sure he's dead, or it was two different people. I don't know that, but definitely there was movement, and likely it happened at minutes apart or however long that was.
Well,
it's a really good point.
And that's going to be answered through the blood spatter analysis. So you're going to have, if he's laying on his back there with the coup de grace, and you have a through and through round that ricochets up and or at least fragments off, and that's going to explain some of those other injuries in there where that fragment's going to hit. But what you're going to have, if he's shot standing up, right, then you're going to have 90-degree angle blood going straight down. That it's going to look like just a pin drop, right? A circle, as we know. Okay. And if he's laying on his back when the coup de grace comes, then when they move him, you're going to see, what kind of, blood spatter analysis you've got there. And whether or not if he has blood on his shoes or on the top or the bottom, that means he was moving, folks. Okay? When he was shot, he was moving. Okay, so we'll wait to see what comes up from the crime lab where that blood's going to be located. But that will also tell us, some more about this mystery as we're talking about it. So do you want me to blow this up a little bit bigger for you, Steve? Thank you, Dean, for putting this up.
I've got it. I can read it if
okay. Why don't you read it through? Pick us up where we left off, where the video cut off.
Dean, I want you to scroll down just a little bit. Okay.
And shout out to all of our nurses while you're doing that. Thank you for
just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Okay, hold up. Okay, back up just a bit. There we go. So after this huge sensitivity that he had regarding going back to the room, the officer, let me find it on my paper here.
He says, so, okay, you brought your gun with you. And Alex says, yes. He says, do you always? And Alex says, yes, I have a concealed carry, and I always just to be safe.
Yeah, just to be safe. So he's answering, he's repeating back to the officer. And then Alex says, or the PD asks, hi, or he's asking somebody else. And it's Lori showing up now with Tylee. And then Alex says, and then, which is a little bit of a time gap, missing information, I told him to put the bat down and he wouldn't, and he came at me again. So again, we have this generic, he came at me again. And Chris, now that we're into this statement and we're breaking it down and we're getting into what we call the linguistic empathy, we're understanding more of what's going on in Alex's brain at this time. Okay. This repetition of, how many, I wish I would have counted how many times he says, he came at me again, or he just said, he came at me. He repeats this again and again and again without saying the word again. But it's repeated. And here he actually said the word again. And I'm really wondering if this is reference to shots being fired again. It's just that this came up again. And so just with the language that I'm seeing, these words become important the more that we start picking it apart. So anyway.
And also, Steve, to kind of dovetail into your thought, Lori, or eye roll, hey, that's her new dark name, everybody, if you're just joining us. We've given her that's Lori backwards, IROL. But if she shows up with the rental car, and Tylee's in the car, and JJ, of course, went to school. Well, that's another red herring, another huge red flag here. And early on, when the officer, he almost took a breath where he's like, the rental car,
Yeah.
Any seasoned officer immediately is going to go, the dead guy's rental car, the guy who's deceased in here, the murder victim, she took his car, okay? Which, leans me even further that maybe Tylee's in the car with JJ, as those two potentially are hatching, this further, problem inside. Just as a thought.
If she took his car, if she took his rental car, she's not anticipating him leaving anytime soon.
Yeah, amen to that, right?
So she's not expecting him to talk, Charles into leaving. That's not what's Alex is. She doesn't leave with the rental car if she believes that if she gets out of there, he's going to convince him to leave so she can later come back.
Right.
So.
And here's the other side to that. I mean, think about this. If she took Charles' car, was Charles already dead when she left?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
because then she's going to feel even more comfortable to take it because she knows he's not going to need it.
Right.
Right. And remember her story in the interview, right, with Chandler PD it's about the cell phone.
Yeah.
It's not well, let's see. You can get the car, but you can't get the cell phone? Okay. Yeah, let's put that in the win column over here. We'll be right back. Let's take a break. Do you want something to drink? Go ahead. Finish up where you're at there, Steve. I'm sorry.
No, that's excellent. Oh man, Chris, I miss those days. I wish I could have worked with you for a little bit. That would have been awesome.
Well, we're working here.
We're working here now.
Maybe we can help these families, right? Maybe we can help these families.
Okay, so where do we end up?
So here, hi. This is where Lori and Tylee approach, and then says, and then I told him to put the bat down, and he wouldn't, and he came at me again, and you were talking about how many times he says that.
Oh, okay. So here's the question, and the officer's going to pick up on this. If you had the need, if this was escalating to the point that you went to get your gun, why in the world would you ever come back out of the room? And like I said earlier, why wouldn't you just be running out the door and then run to that neighbor that you know and call the police? Why would you stay in there? This tells me that this is I'm going to lay down the BS card on this one, because this does not make sense. This is not what one would normally do. It does make sense if you intended to kill someone, or you are making this story up to cover up the homicide that you just committed, and you have to make a story now. But this story does not hold water. It is full of holes. It's full of all kinds of problems. It's full of deception is what it is. So I told him to put the bat down, and he wouldn't, and he came at me again. And the officer says, so you told him to put, yes, exactly. So
he doesn't even wait. He doesn't even wait for him to get out the full sentence, because as you just said, this is important to his narrative, he thinks, is to make sure that he makes it clear that he told him to put the bat down.
Yeah, that is definitely important. So where are you? Where are you now? Did you stay in your bedroom? That's a good question. And he says, no. Well, why don't you just stay in your room? No, he says again. Okay, why don't you just stay in your bedroom and close the door? The officer's good for the officer. He's like, he's not going to let go of it. He's not letting him out of this. And Alex just pauses. There is no answer for this. And in other words, Alex's brain is going, we weren't expecting this. Hey, what do we do?
Houston, we have a problem.
We have a problem. And the cop says, is that something you just didn't think about? He gave him an out, and Alex took it. Alex says, it didn't even occur to me. And I agree. That was not part of his story, and he didn't think that was going to be necessary until confronted with it. It's like, oh, yeah, I guess that would have made more sense.
And let's point out to our audience, Steve, why that was such a brilliant move by the first responding officer who gives him an out, because what he's going to do now is remember, if Alex was still here and Alex would have seen every one of these statements, just like Steve has here, blown up on huge charts in the courtroom. Okay. And the first thing any good prosecutor would say to the officer is, well, how many times did you give him an out? Okay. Yeah. And this would be evidence towards that. So to Steve's point, everything coming out of Alex's mouth is evidence. Everything. So I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Steve, but I think that was critical to point out.
No, I love your comments and your insight. I think that these responses and the psychological out or the easy way that Alex can grab onto this and save face it's subtle, but this officer's giving it to him and he's jumping on it. And what it's doing is it's keeping Alex talking. If Alex at any point feels like he's being accused of wrongdoing, he's likely to just to shut up and not say anything. So the officer did a great job and kept him talking this way. So hats off to you. Okay, so Alex says, it didn't even occur to me. So the officer says, okay, so walk me through it. Go back in your room. And Alex says, I just go back in the living room. And then he makes his quote, what is your problem? Again, he gives he quotes a question that was asked in this incident between he and Charles. He's not saying who made this statement. He's not saying if he made it or if Charles is saying it, but he says he didn't, and also he's saying he didn't say I went back in the living room. He just says I just go back in the living room. That word "just" is minimizing this. It's taking a psychological step away from this. It's an inference that there's an alternative thought in Alex's mind here, that this isn't just what he did, but he wants you to believe that. And
this is Thomas's point here. Look what Thomas Randolph said. This is hogwash. Alex knew what he was sent there to do. He was sent there to take Hiplos out to protect Lori from an evil spirit. So to your point, Steve, he's battling, knowing what his intent is, to take him out with, I got to make up a story here for the unspiritual world, i.e. the cops, and make it look like he grabbed a bat and came at me. But go ahead, finish your point. That was a great point, Thomas. Thank you for pointing that up.
That really was. Here we have not only Alex psychologically distancing himself from I just go back in the living room, which actually could be part of this, what we were seeing before, the highly likelihood that he took a couple shots, went in the room, came out, took a couple more shots. Maybe Charles was still moaning or whatever, and he wanted to make sure he was dead. Took a couple more shots. I don't know. That's speculation on my part, but time passed. He says, I just go back in the living room. And then the quote, what is your problem? Again, now we have more quotes, and down below that, then the next line, we're going to have another one that's dude. And so do you guys remember what the first quote was? it was likely, I said it was likely Charles. Oh, here it is. What are you doing? And if you put this all together, what are you doing? And it might have come in this order. What are you doing? And he's confronted with the gun. What's your problem, dude? And that's it. Being that Alex did not say I said this, he's just throwing it out there. It reminds me of Barry Morphew when he kind of left this please on the end of his plea that wasn't a plea for Suzanne. It was please, like, please for what? There was nothing there. It was just kind of hangling. And this is what we have again here. What's your problem? This was likely Charles' words along with what are you doing? So PD says, okay, so he says, with the gun in your hand? Alex says, yes. And I said, I want you to put that back down, and he wouldn't do it. And he was like, dude. So now this is key, because he just made sure that we knew that dude was what Charles said. This further emphasizes to me that those other words were actually Charles's words as well. And he says, and he came at me with the bat again after he had already hit me in the head. So I shot him. Why? To stop him. He didn't say why, but he said, so I shot him to stop him. So there's one thing, there's a little word in here that you'll miss if you're not looking for it. And if people that aren't trained, they won't know to look for this, but it's a communicative word. And people that are making things up will use the wrong communicative language. In a tense situation like this, we expect harsh communicative language like, he told me, I told him, I yelled at him, I demanded, harsh words like this, put the bat down. But he didn't say that. He got it mixed up, and he said, and I said, that's a very soft communicative language. It should not be used in the context of someone coming at you with a bat. I mean, it doesn't work. But deceptive people will mix this up, and they'll use the soft communicative language where it doesn't belong. And it's just another indicator for us that this is a deceptive story. So again, add another check mark. I don't know how many check marks we have to the deceptive column, but we certainly have it here.
Yeah, when I was reading that or listening to it and reading it, I was thinking it almost has the tone of, somebody saying, hey, knock it off, or I'm going to throw water on you, or it's more of a, I'm going to mess with you or whatever. It doesn't have the level. I mean, we're talking about a scenario here that this is life and death. Two individuals, one with a baseball bat purportedly coming after somebody, and somebody else to protect their own life. The narrative just, it's like watching a foreign film that's been dubbed and it doesn't match. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like the mouth's moving, but the words, this is not fitting. Somebody's messing with me here.
Yeah, and the guy taking the statement here, he felt it too. Yeah, and he knew it, because he goes right into, if I can read that, Steve, where he goes, okay, and then what happened? And Alex goes, that was it.
That was it. That was it. And Chris, typically when they say what else happened, what was next, and then the person says, that's it. that's them saying, I have more information, but if I keep talking, I'm really going to burn myself. So I'm just going to say that's it and hope that you don't ask me any more questions. Yeah, that's in essence is what that means. And the beauty of this skill set of doing the analysis and breaking down just simply what people say, entering into the linguistic empathy, understanding on a deep level why they use this word, this phrase in this context at this time. It paints a picture that just circumvents all the other guesswork. It takes the guesswork completely out of it. Alex has the information we want, and he's going to give it away as long as he speaks, which is what he's doing right here, right now. And this is why this is such a valuable tool for all investigators. Everyone should be trained in this. And I mean, if you do any kind of communication, negotiation, anything, you need to have this kind of knowledge if you want to come out on top. Otherwise, you're going to miss a lot of information. There's a lot of things that just go by the wayside that even the best investigators don't catch unless they have the training and know exactly what to look for. But you can see that there's just all kinds of information here. It's just it's hiding right in plain sight. Yeah, and this is kind of a no-brainer one.
Yeah, it is in plain sight because he shifts gears. He goes right into what's your name, where do you work? We get those answers, but then he throws him off balance again real fast. He goes, "Where's the weapon now?"
Yeah,
where's the weapon at now? And tell us how he responds.
Well, he says,
it's in the bedroom.
Yeah, and I wonder.
But look at the officer.
The officer says, "So what?"
So after you shot him, you put it back in the bat. You put it back in the room, or that's giving him an out. To your point.
Yeah. And good for the officer. I mean, he called him out on this, but in a way that he still gave him an out. I mean, wait, so you were calm enough that you went back to your room and you just put it back in your room? I mean, to have that kind of mindset, to have that kind of coolness and calm after you shoot somebody is really remarkable. And it's scary. So if he was a good guy, it would be remarkable. Since he's a bad guy, it's scary. And quite frankly, I'm glad that he's not here on the earth anymore, because this guy is a serial killer.
Yeah, he's dangerous.
He is dangerous. He's absolutely dangerous. And the scary thing about this, Chris and Dean, I think that he likes this. He enjoys this. This is something that he is just, I think he's enjoying this. I did this. I got away with it. I'm pulling the wool over the cop's eyes. I think that Alex feels invincible, and that's a scary individual.
Yeah, he's reacting on. Oh, I can get over these guys. I can get over these guys pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So you know what? This is a good place to kind of to put it on pause tonight.
Yeah.
We're 2 hours into this, but here's a couple of things I want to let everybody know. Okay, Steve, tell everybody about your company real fast, and tell everybody about your website. So if you guys have not had an opportunity, if this is the first time you're ever seeing Steve Johnson here tonight, he's got an incredible website where he's got classes that you can attend in corporate America, but he trains law enforcement all around the country, internationally as well, how to do statement analysis. And he's the best of the best. I'm always grateful that he finds time to come onto our show here. So Steve, tell him about your website and everything.
Yeah, my website we just launched a new one. It's www.truthtolies.com. It's truth with the number 2 lies.com. And everybody go there. At the bottom of the home screen, I have a free PDF that you can download. It talks about what it is that keeps us from getting to the truth, what it is that makes us miss these indicators of deception, like what you're seeing here, what we're pointing out. Like Chris said, I train law enforcement, professional investigators, corporate, and I have a few mental health therapists, prosecutors, and attorneys in the classes. So that's pretty much what the training has been. And military, that's pretty much who I've been training. But now I've got the class online. We filmed a class in Utah last year. And right now I have that class available to everyone for the law enforcement pricing. If you don't know, law enforcement budgets are limited. And so We don't charge the same as we would charge corporate America. Right now, you can get that class, the full deal, for the same price that I charge law enforcement. So it's not going to last. I am going to create some smaller courses and put those on the website as well. Those will be coming shortly. They will be cheaper, and then the whole enchilada course, that's the price of that is going to go way up. So grab it while you can. I have blog articles on that website, and like I mentioned earlier, there's one regarding Lori Vallow and an email she wrote to JJ's school when she withdrew him from the school. So I broke that down, just very simple, but it shows that she knew he wasn't going to be around. It's actually, when you understand the mindset, it's pretty chilling to get into those people's minds, which is what we're doing here. We're crawling up into their mind, and we're understanding on a deep level why those words are coming out of their mouth or their pen when they write it, whatever it is. And that's just, I'm telling you, it's just fantastic. When you start breaking down a statement, it never gets old. I feel like a kid at Christmas time when we recognize something in the words that people are saying. It's like, oh my goodness, it's right there. It's right there in front of us. We're solving cold cases. I get hired to work on cold cases for agencies and other agencies, corporate. And there's as long as somebody has spoken, been interviewed, or written out what happened, the information's there. And I'm telling you, what comes out of those words is just incredible. It's just a plethora of information that you likely, very, very likely, did not have before. And so it's just an exciting skill to learn, and everyone can benefit from. I mean, even if you're a parent dealing with teenagers, or a teacher, HR, human resources people that are investigating false injury complaints, sexual harassment complaints. You want to hire the right people. You want to know who they really are. This is a gold mine. It's not just deception we're looking at. It's what we call latent content. People will give away things about themselves that the average person is going to miss. You're not going to see it unless you know what to look for in the language, but they will give away major personality traits, the language of drug addiction and other addictions, the narcissistic traits, and
we all need that one.
Oh man, we even see the language of victims of domestic violence, sexual perpetrators, other sexual victims and deviants, and the list goes on and on and on. I don't have time to list everything, but the language is there. If you want to know on a deep level, this is the skill to get into, and I'm telling you, it's the gift that keeps on giving. It just keeps getting better and better and better. So, and Chris, your show is awesome. I appreciate the opportunity every time you allow me to come on your show.
Steve, we love you, buddy. I mean, you're amazing. You've been given a gift, and I'm glad you're one of the good guys. You're like Dean, up there. Everybody here, Maui Girl just put up his website in our chat. Thank you, Maui Girl. Grateful for that.
Thank
you.
I'll
also put the link below. Get over to take a look at his website. He's got a lot of great stuff sitting over there, like he mentioned. And my brother Dean. What can I say about Dean Coop and the Cold Case Foundation? As you guys know, these guys are solving crimes all over the world, and they give you got a 2-minute elevator pitch. Dean, tell them about Cold Case Live, all the great things you guys are doing. It's what, $2.99 that helps support the foundation, right? It's a 501c3.
Yeah, we're basically a network of professionals, experts from around the world, and Steve is one of our team members, as well as Chris, and there's well over 100 that are just on our website, and then we have access through their network and others to literally hundreds around the country, and it's a lot of fun. It gives us an opportunity to really bring some resources to the table and connect resources. As I said earlier, it's about coordinating cooperating and communicating, and that's the kind of basis for what we do. People have asked me, what's your model? And I think we started years ago looking at kind of all these different models out there, and we got kind of hung up on Amazon's early model when Amazon used to say they were the world's largest bookstore. And I'm thinking, holy cow, it's this big, huge physical building, and I want to go see it. And then what I realized was it was a network of people that if you had told them you needed a book, they'd send it to you. And so we're trying to become kind of the Amazon of cold cases. It's not that we have all the answers. We have contact with the experts, and we do this all the time. We never sit down solo. We bring people together, and it's a collaborative effort. Greg likes to refer to it as the Mayo Clinic approach to solving cold cases. And every time I'm involved in one, I have a blast and I learn something. So, and being on your show is a great privilege. And as you mentioned, coldcase.live is the one arm that we have that allows us to raise some money so that the donations we get go directly towards the cases. And so anybody that wants to come out there, there's at least 4 podcasts. We're opening an academy out there. I think there's already some courses there and blogs. So love to have you join us.
Amazingly done too. It's professionally produced out of a gentleman named AJ who's on the team. We love AJ. He's a professional. He's in Hollywood, and that's what he does. And he's on the Cold Case Foundation team, and he is really putting some amazing stuff together with James and others. And so we can't say enough about these guys because, think about this, folks. They're doing this for free. It's a 501c3. It does not cost a family a dime. If the Cold Case Foundation takes on your case, then what happens is it's given to a team of these experts, and there's over 100 guys and gals. And some of the most people like Steve, he's a perfect example. These guys are the top in their class. Who created the Bordeaux method? Right. I always use her as an example.
Yep.
Right?
Francine, one of our team members, created the Bordeaux method for getting DNA off of shell casing.
Touch DNA.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the gal who invented it and created it is in the Cold Case Foundation. So where everybody else talks about it, this is, would you rather like to talk to the person that actually did it? And that's the same with Steve and others.
Yep.
So we got a lot of great things happening. So I want to give a couple of shout outs tonight, not only to Cold Case, not only to Steve, Truth to Lives, but to you, each and every one of you in the true crime community, all our subscribers, and all of you good people out there, your victims' families. My heart goes out to each and every one of you victims' families.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand where you're at. I don't understand what you go through sometimes. Okay? We all have our Gethsemanes, as they say, and each of us has to walk into that situation by ourselves, unfortunately. Okay? That said, I want to give a shout out to all of our nurses, our doctors, our military people, our teachers, all the people serving in civil service out there, who are taking care of our communities, and all of our PD guys, as not only just our dispatchers, our evidence people, our people who run the evidence facilities, they get overlooked. Okay, there are guys and gals running the evidence facilities that have to get this evidence into court, or else Lori doesn't even go to court. They have to manage that evidence, and they're called custodians of evidence. Okay, they're managers. All of our records people in the agencies, all the firefighters out there, the EMTs, anybody in a service-oriented, job. Thank you.
And dispatchers.
Thank you. And dispatchers. I mean, we love our dispatchers. How many dispatchers have saved our lives?
Yep.
Right, guys?
That's true.
For sure.
And
For sure.
nobody says, other than, us, to say thank you. But I know you say thank you, each and every one of you. all of the first responders out there, we're grateful. And all of our military folks out there and military families, thank you for your service. And thank you for letting your children serve. Because of them, I'm able to have a YouTube channel and to meet people like you. Okay. So let's remember that we're doing good in this true crime community. We have a really high profile case going right now with Summer Wells in Tennessee missing, with Maya Miliete in San Diego, with Kelly, with Brian McKenzie in Tennessee, with Echo in Missouri, with Suzanne, whose body is still missing in Colorado. I'm hoping that Barry is going to do the right thing. I'm not going to hold my breath. I'm going to go with a $10 bingo card on him. Okay. With that guy ever doing anything, and maybe a $5 bingo card on Larry with Miliete. Okay. However, those cases are moving in the right direction. Trust me. I have some inside scoops sometimes with law enforcement. Go figure. But I know that these cases are moving. Okay. And you have a commitment from me and from my team and my sweet wife, who, by the way, got me this very cool shirt here, this homicide detective, and I couldn't do any of this without her. I love this girl more than anything. She has been the life blood of this man, because she's just an amazing human being. And so to all of you mothers, all of you sisters, all of you daughters, all of you wives and grandmas, thank you for being you. I just think you're fantastic and fabulous. And I'm hoping one day we get to meet and have these meet and greets or whatever they talk about, and we get to know each other even as friends even further. Thank you for being here this evening. Let's not forget to continue to be good to each other. Let's not forget, who we are as human beings, and let's try to take care of each other a little bit better. It can only get better from here, as long as we're continuing to think about each other. Yeah. And let's bring justice to those victims, shall we?
Amen.
Thank you for being here, guys. Steve, we appreciate you. Thank your wife and your family for letting you come and hang out with me. Dean, to you and your family. And by the way, Dean's a grandfather. He's got an amazing grandson. How old? Yep. How big is he now?
He's 6 months. Just made it to 6 months.
6 months.
He's amazing. So
okay, that's there you go. And Steve, do you have any grandkids?
I sure do. Yeah, they're the best. Well, we got 3 in Texas, and I've got 3 here in Arizona. So my youngest she was just here tonight. She's just about 3. She's 3 months old now. She's
wow,
man, just the cutest little thing ever. But they're all great. We love them, and you mentioned the law enforcement, all the first responders. Man, God bless all you guys that are still fighting the fight and doing what you're doing out there, especially in today's society with everything going on. You guys really are amazing that you're still fighting that fight. So thank you for mentioning that, Chris.
Absolutely.
Yeah, be safe out there.
Be safe. You guys ready to go to Hawaii? Let's go. Dillan, we miss you. We love you, pal. Thank you for everything you do. Let's go to Hawaii. We'll see you on the next one. Oh, and by the way, I'm headed east. I'll just give you that. So we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for being here with us.
Hard working every day. I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts. Wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah. Make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away. favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze